Question, is a GOP Senate takeover inevitable? Guy.
I don't think it's inevitable. I think it looks like it's a very real possibility at this point, John. But what we have to remember is that as bad as things look for the Democrats, and as easy as it has become to criticize the Democratic leadership and the executive, the Republicans nationally have not really rallied around or together in a specific direction. So this is going to come down to local races, local issues and places, and this divide between the sort of extreme Tea Party and the more moderate sides of the party continues to be there. I think it's a mixed bag, and we're not. I don't know how it's going to come down.
And in the dozen states with the competitive Senate races, Obama's popularity is even lower than it is nationally. It's at 38%. But the pollsters find that Democrats are really energized in those states, and normally in a midterm the Republicans have the edge, so that alters the landscape a little bit. And you look at the sort of the red state senators, you pictured some of them, Landrieu, Begich, Pryor, they're all leading in the polls right now, so it's not as though they've all collapsed, at least not yet. And you have two opportunities where Democratic women could pull off some real upsets, and that's in Kentucky with Allison Grimes, and in Georgia, Sam Nunn's daughter, Michelle Nunn, is doing very well. So I think it's, the Republicans certainly have a better than even chance of taking control, but it's not inevitable by any means.
No, it's not inevitable, but the underlying issue, it seems to me, two underlying issues. I don't think there's any great deal of confidence in the administration, and that sort of pervades and spreads all over the Democratic Party because nobody has that much confidence in Obama, and he is the symbol of the Democratic Party. But the other side of it, which nobody has yet mentioned, it seems to me, is how weak the economy is. I mean, we have a huge number of people who are either underemployed or unemployed, and it's not getting better. And people just know it out there, and they sense it in terms of the lives they're leading, the problems they're having in terms of their jobs, and they know that the economy is weak, and they, of course, hold the Democrats responsible.
That's exactly right. I mean, we had minus 3% growth the first quarter, John. And you got people are sort of a malaise on the economy. Secondly, you've got these scandals breaking, the IRS and the VA and the Obamacare issue of competence. You got the president's polls are sinking like a stone, and especially in foreign policy, and it looks like this mess in Iraq and Syria is going to get worse. What does a Democrat, why would he go to the polls and say, I really want to go out and vote, except to say, I just don't want the Republicans to get control of the Senate, and that's not good enough.
No, and not wanting the Republicans is big in the minds of a lot of Democrats. And you look at the Republican side, the way the Senate race in Mississippi was settled has a lot of conservative Republicans angry. You've got Sarah Palin talking about a third party. You've got the popularity of Republicans and Tea Party kind of equated,
but
much lower than
Obama's.
So you can't, you can't beat someone with no one.
Yeah, but you're not running the presidency now. You're running state elections, statewide elections, and on that basis, you are beating somebody, with somebody.
But the Republicans want to nationalize it, make it sound like you're really voting against Obama. But I agree with you, it is individual, and Democrats are not doing as badly as you would think when you look race by race.
Guy, I'll call on you. Give me the names of the Democrat senators who have problems.
Take your time.
I think
I'm showing here Landrieu is in trouble in Louisiana.
Yeah, but she's not lost it at all. Neither has Pryor lost it in Arkansas.
More important piece here is that the
they could go Republican. These are the ones. These are the ones who are exhibiting some weakness. Hold on.
Put the money
Kay Hagan
in the right
is in trouble in North Carolina, and Mark Pryor is in trouble in Arkansas. That adds up to a 6-point
but John,
seat gain for the GOP.
They're all close. If you
and
got
there are
a
open
wave,
seats. Where are the open seats now?
The open seats, one of them, I guess, is in Georgia. One of them's in Georgia.
I don't think Georgia is open. South Dakota, West Virginia, and Montana.
Michigan and Iowa.
I think Oklahoma. But, John, they're all very close. If you get a wave, a 6-year wave that rolls over them, they will all go under. If there's no wave, I think then you could get splits up and down, and maybe you don't get the Senate.
That means that the GOP takes over the Senate.
I think they're going to win it.
You do?
I do.
Yeah, but the wave hasn't materialized yet.
How about Al Franken? Is Al Franken showing any weakness, or Ron Wyden in Oregon? I hope not.
Ron Wyden's going to win. He's got an interesting competitor, Monica Wiebe. She's a pediatric neurologist, and she looked really powerful coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
But she's had some difficulties, and I think Wyden will
How about
win.
Franklin? He works hard at his job.
Did you see,
Frank-
how about that
Franken is
gal
in
in
good
Iowa
shape.
who said that she used to castrate hogs, and she's perfectly positioned to come to Washington and deal with the pork barrels in Iowa. She could win in Iowa.
Her name is Joni Ernst.
She could win.
And yeah, it's a competitive race in Iowa. It's a competitive
It's an
race
open
in Michigan.
seat.
We have a lot of competitive races here. You're right.
Okay,
If there
there's
is
no-
a wave.
The House
Wave,
is.
it's all over.
That's
Can we talk about the House for a minute?
Sure.
The House is dominantly Republican, and it's
No one-
possibly inconceivable that it could go
No
Democratic.
one thinks it's going to go Democratic, and they could
Okay.
pick up
Because
some
of the-
seats.
Because of the gerrymandering.
Will it
yeah.
lose its? Will it enlarge its majority when 63 Democrats? Let's see. What do I show here? The GOP may not enlarge its majority as much as it did in 2010 when 63 Democrats lost their House seats.
No.
This is because most of the vulnerable Democrats in competitive districts have already been booted from office.
Most of the seats that are Republican, the Republicans already have. The potential, upside potential of the Republicans is fairly small, but there's some potential.
And
Tell me whether this is right or wrong. The big picture on the Republican primaries this year. National Tea Party-backed candidates lost to Main Street Republicans. GOP House and Senate candidates in Mississippi, Oklahoma, Colorado, Kentucky, South Carolina, Texas, Georgia, Montana, North Carolina, and West Virginia beat challenges backed by the National Tea Party groups. What do you conclude from that?
Well, that's true. The Tea Party has not had a good year overall,
Is
but
the Tea Party in decline?
I don't know if it's certainly not dominant. But take a look at the 7th District of Virginia
Right,
and Eric
exactly.
Cantor.
And the Tea Party still has the rest of the Republican
Right,
Party
but the
terrorized.
organized fundraisers
People are
are not
terrified to
there.
do anything
Yeah.
that looks
But an
moderate
important
that they're going to
point-
get
A quick
picked off.
question to you. Is the Tea
Look,
Party,
hold on, the
just a moment,
organized- the
is the
fun-
Tea Party monolithic? Is it monolithic?
It's spread out at the top about who decides
It's not
where
monolithic.
the money goes, and that's been a problem which I was bringing up to begin with. Is that the leadership of the Republican Party needs to decide where to put the money in these races, and it's very hard because there are so many different races with different issues at the very local level
But
to
they
decide
have a
where
ton-
to
they
put the
have
money.
a ton of money, thanks to
I
the
understand,
Koch
but
brothers,
in the
etc.
case of
What-
the Eric
let Maud
Cantor
in.
race,
Maud,
they
go
won
ahead.
by
No,
luck.
I'm
not
going to go
because they
back.
put
I'm
the
going to
money
go back to
behind
the.
right
Shortage of
candidate.
money.
I'm going to go back to the point I made before. There's so many districts where the unemployment rates are very, very high relative to where they used to be, where the sense of economic optimism has virtually evaporated, and this is going to affect family after family after family, and it's going to affect the voting
Why would the
patterns.
African American vote come out as high as their unemployment is, and as unhappy as they feel, and
All right.
Obama's not at the top of the ticket?
Let me get in with this exit question. If the midterm elections were held today, which way would the Senate go? Democratic, Republican, or is it still a coin toss? Pat Buchanan.
Republicans would win the United States Senate barely.
Eleanor.
If it were held today, I think Democrats would hold on.
You do?
Yes, if it were held today, and black Democrats came out in Mississippi for a Republican.
Quickly,
They come
18.
out if they see their self-interest,
Oh,
and it's up to the Democrats
gotta get in here.
to show them their
Exact
self-interest.
50-50 split, but the Democrats take it because Biden has the deciding vote.
What do you think?
Oh, I think the Republicans are going to take the Senate by probably larger margins than you all think, because there's so many states that are really hurting economically. This is still going to drive the voters. They're going to blame the existing, the incumbents, and they're going to blame the Democratic administration.
Okay, 18 weeks to go before that date. Narrowly Republican. Issue 3, gross criminal product.
It's about 10 billion in total, as you say. 5.5 of that prostitution, 4.5 illegal drug stealing. So that's how we get to the 10 billion. Just to put that in context, that's about 0.75% of the size of the rest of the economy, about 0.75% of existing gross domestic product.
Crime counts, at least in the European Union. Starting in September, EU governments will begin adding the tally of consensual criminal transactions like drug dealing and prostitution to official government statistics on gross domestic product. Britain estimates a 0.75% boost to its GDP, amounting to £10 billion, $16.8 billion. Italy calculates that a 10.9% of its total GDP stems from illicit sex and drugs. So a preliminary estimate of the total for the 28-member European Union is 18.6% of the EU's 17 trillion GDP. Not everyone is pleased by the EU's GDP change. Quote, prostitution is not a voluntary commercial activity, unquote. French Minister for Women's Rights Najat Vallaud-Belkacem wrote in protest to the European Commission, calling the change, quote, an insult to the millions of victims of sexual exploitation worldwide, unquote. Others see accounting shenanigans. With Eurozone growth flat, the change will give an overnight boost to GDP. That makes it easier for member states to meet the EU spending caps of 3% of GDP, thus easing pressure on governments to control spending. If adopted in the United States, the accounting changes could boost our GDP by as much as 3% overnight.
What do you think of those stats, Mort? Is it a good idea or a bad idea to include illicit activity in counting the size of gross domestic product?
I think it's nonsense, to be honest with you. If you think that there is a product that comes out of what we used to call prostitution, I don't know what it's going to be called called by in the government categories, or in gambling, where there's nothing, then there's no product, okay, of that kind. There's nothing that comes out of it other than what that activity is. And frankly, it gives a credibility to both of those activities that I don't think should be a part of a government accounting.
Gambling is legal in certain places, and prostitution is legal in certain places.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think my instinct is not to expand its reach and spread, if you don't mind.
What about Vegas? Are you happy that Vegas is taxed?
You're taxing earnings on the Vegas. You're not taxing gambling winnings. That's
yes,
the difference.
Do. You tax gambling winnings.
You
deduct losses against gambling losses against gambling winnings.
Yes.
I hope you're paying yours more.
You know, my advantage is that I've only lost. I've never had the problem with winning.
Well, you know, if you're going to say you have to produce a worthy product in order to be included in the gross domestic product, what about all the people that put together those derivative based on packaging phony securities? It seems to me, they fueled our economy for a big long time, and then there was a big crash. So I'm not really moralistic about this. I think economic activity is economic activity. It counts in Nevada. Prostitution is part of their industry there. In Colorado, where marijuana is now legal, it's part of the tax base. So
I agree with the mathematics here.
I
agree with the mathematics, but that lady's got a good point on the morality. When you start considering prostitution and drugs and things like that as sort of legitimate commercial enterprises, it tells you about the decline of your culture and your economy and your country.
This is not about legitimizing these enterprises or taxing them. This is about creating a loophole for bureaucracies in Europe to try and make up fake numbers to hide their debt to GDP ratio. How are you going to prove how much gray economy or black market economy is actually going on, other than having a group of bespectacled academics sit around and claim they know how many hookers and drug dealers there are?
Yeah, but it's closing.
There's no product. There's no product. There's no product whatever, okay?
Mort says there's no product.
No, what is it? Totally made up number.
Of course it could be.
It's a service industry.
I would agree it's a service industry.
False prediction. The economy will snap back in the second quarter. True or false?
Modestly.
Yes, 4 to 5%.
False, because of gas prices.
Yeah, false, for sure.
The answer is yes. Happy July 4th weekend. Bye-bye.